My parents sold my childhood home to my sister for pennies, saying I didn't deserve it because I wasn't family-oriented enough. After years of being cast aside, I bought the house back and evicted her just when she needed it most. Hey everyone, before we dive in, I have a quick favor to ask. If you enjoy content like this, please hit the subscribe button. It's free, supports the channel, and ensures you never miss out on amazing videos. Alright, let's get started. It's funny how life-changing moments can start with something so ordinary. In my case, it was a random Tuesday evening dinner at my parents' house, watching my mother, Catherine, fuss over my sister Freya's kids while I absently pushed my mashed potatoes around my plate. I should have noticed something was off when my father, Jack, kept glancing at me with this weird mix of guilt and defiance. But I was too busy thinking about a work project. The realtor says we can close by the end of the month, Freya mentioned casually, and I nearly choked on my water. I knew my parents had been talking about downsizing, moving to something more manageable as they got older, but this was the first I'd heard about any actual plans. That's great news, honey, Catherine beamed, reaching over to squeeze Freya's hand. It'll be so wonderful having you and the kids in the old house. All those memories. I set my fork down slowly. Wait, what? The silence that followed was deafening. My mother suddenly became very interested in helping my 4-year-old niece cut her chicken. Freya had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable, but my father met my eyes with that same strange, challenging look. Your sister is buying the house, he said flatly. We've been discussing it for a while now. A while, right. I'm a financial advisor. I know exactly what housing prices are doing in our area. This house, the one I grew up in, the one where I spent countless hours helping my dad restore the original hardwood floors and replace the aging windows during my college summers, was worth at least $750,000 in the current market. What's the sale price? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. More silence. Dad? $200,000, Freya answered quietly. They're giving me a family discount. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. A family discount? That wasn't a discount. That was practically giving it away. And nobody had thought to mention this to me, let alone offer me the same opportunity. Were you planning to tell me about this at all? I asked, looking around the table. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. Then my father started, his voice taking on that lecturing tone he used when he thought he was being particularly wise. Your sister has 3 kids to think about. She needs the space, and she's carrying on the family tradition. He paused, searching for words. You're focused on different things. Different things, right? Because I chose to pursue my career instead of starting a family right out of college. Because at 32, I was still single and childless, more interested in building my investment portfolio than changing diapers. Never mind that I'd been helping them financially for years, paying for home repairs and medical bills they couldn't quite cover on their retirement income. I see, I said quietly. And these different things make me less deserving of an equal opportunity? Don't be dramatic, Ethan, Freya cut in, bouncing her youngest on her knee. You make good money. You don't need the help like I do. Besides, you're never even here anymore. When was the last time you came over just to visit? Not because Mom guilted you into a family dinner? I wanted to point out that I was busy because I was building something that I couldn't just drop everything for impromptu family gatherings like she could. I wanted to remind them that I'd spent the last 5 years helping them financially, while Freya was too busy with her perfect family life to notice our parents were struggling. But what was the point? Catherine, my father said sharply when my mother looked like she might say something. She closed her mouth and went back to fussing with the kids. I stood up slowly, my dinner mostly untouched. Thank you for dinner, Mom. I should get going. Early meeting tomorrow. Ethan, don't be like this, Freya called after me as I headed for the door. It's just business. Family business. I stopped in the doorway, turning back to look at them all. My father's stubborn expression, my mother's guilty one, Freya's self-righteous concern, and her kids, oblivious to the tension around them. You're right, Freya. It is family business, and you've made it very clear where I stand in this family. I drove home that night with my head spinning. $200,000. They were practically giving away my childhood home, because my sister had kids and I didn't, because she was family-oriented and I wasn't, because she needed the help and I didn't. Never mind that she needed help because she and her husband had been living beyond their means for years, while I'd been careful with my money. But as I pulled into my apartment complex, a strange calm settled over me. I'm a financial advisor. I know how money works, how the market works, and most importantly, how people work when it comes to money. Freya had always been terrible with finances, always living paycheck to paycheck despite her husband's decent income. $200,000 for a house worth nearly 4 times that. Even with their combined income, that was going to be tight. I opened my laptop and pulled up some financial modeling software. Time to start running some numbers. After all, they wanted to make this about family business? Fine, let's see how business really works. Who knew? Maybe being focused on different things would turn out to be an advantage after all. Update time has a funny way of revealing things. It's been 2 years since that dinner where I learned my parents had practically given away our family home to my sister Freya. 2 years of strategic distance, of polite but brief appearances at holiday gatherings, of watching and waiting while pretending I'd made peace with everything. I didn't expect the first crack to appear during Easter dinner. Freya was talking about the new granite countertop she wanted to install, and my mother, Catherine, mentioned something about the house's old charm being part of its character. "Well, it's my house now," Freya said with an edge in her voice I'd never heard before. "I think I can decide what to do with it." The look on my mother's face was worth every awkward family gathering I'd endured. It was the first time I'd seen her really understand what giving away the house meant. She'd lost any say in what happened to it. Over the next few months, the cracks kept spreading. Freya's husband, Jackson, started showing up late to family events, smelling faintly of bourbon. Their perfect family image started showing wear around the edges. The kids seemed more subdued, less likely to run around screaming with joy like they used to. I kept my distance, but I didn't miss much. Being the non-family-oriented one had its advantages. Nobody noticed when I stayed in the background, watching, listening. My father Jack's proud stance whenever Freya was around started to look more forced. My mother's smiles became strained when Freya talked about her latest plans for renovating away another piece of their history. Then came the day my mother called me in tears. "Freya is putting in a pool," she sobbed. "Your father's rose garden, she's just going to dig it all up." I listened quietly, remembering how Dad had tenderly cared for those roses for 30 years. "It's her house now, Mom," I reminded her gently. "That's what you wanted, remember?" The silence on the other end was deafening. 6 months later, Jackson moved out. Apparently his drinking wasn't the only issue. He'd also been gambling away their savings. Freya tried to keep it quiet, but in our small community, word gets around, especially when you work in finance and keep your ear to the ground. I started hearing rumors about missed mortgage payments. Nothing official yet, but the signs were there. Freya's perfect life was unraveling, thread by thread. She'd taken out a second mortgage to pay for all those renovations, banking on Jackson's income to cover it. Now she was trying to juggle 3 kids, a house payment she could barely afford, and a divorce. My parents started dropping by my apartment more often. They never directly apologized for what happened with the house, but I could see the regret in their eyes. They'd watch me work on my laptop, managing my growing investment portfolio, and I could almost hear them thinking about how differently things might have turned out. "You've done well for yourself, son," my father said one evening, looking around my home office. The pride in his voice was new, and about 2 years too late. I didn't respond much to these overtures. I'd learned patience. Every time Freya called our parents asking for money, every time she complained about the cost of maintaining such a big house, I just kept quiet and watched. The house that had been practically given away was becoming a millstone around her neck. Then last week it happened. I was reviewing some property listings when I saw it, a notice of intent to foreclose. Freya had missed 4 payments in a row. She was underwater on both mortgages, and with the divorce still pending, she had no way to refinance. I picked up my phone and called my lawyer before I even finished reading the notice. 2 years of waiting, of investing wisely, of building my resources. It was about to pay off. The bank would be looking for a quick sale to recover their investment, and I would be ready. My phone buzzed. A text from Freya. "Can we talk?" "It's about the house." I looked at the message for a long moment, thinking about that family dinner 2 years ago, about family discounts and being family-oriented, about karma and patience and playing the long game. "Sure," I typed back. "I'm free tomorrow afternoon." Final update. The coffee shop where I met Freya was neutral territory. I arrived early, watching through the window as she pulled up in her luxury SUV, the one she probably couldn't afford anymore. Her designer handbag looked worn at the edges, and the carefully applied makeup couldn't quite hide her exhaustion. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. I need your help." I took a slow sip of my coffee, remembering her words from 2 years ago. "Business or family?" She flinched. "The house. I'm behind on payments. Jackson's gambling debts are worse than I thought, and with the divorce..." She trailed off, staring into her untouched latte. "The bank is going to foreclose." "That's unfortunate," I said quietly. "What are you looking for?" "A loan, just until I can refinance. You've always been good with money, and I know you're doing well." She reached across the table, trying to take my hand. I pulled back slightly, and she let her hand drop. "Please, Ethan, the kids love that house. Our family home." "Our family home." I couldn't help but laugh. "The one you got for a family discount because you were more family-oriented than me? The one where you dug up Dad's roses and ignored Mom's tears? That family home?" "I was wrong," she whispered. "We were all wrong? Is that what you want to hear?" I pulled out a folder and placed it on the table. "The bank is selling the house. They've already accepted an offer." Her face went pale. "What? No, they can't. I haven't even had time to." "The paperwork went through yesterday," I said, opening the folder. "Would you like to see who bought it?" Her hands shook as she read the documents. I watched the realization dawn on her face. You bought our house?" "I bought a foreclosed property at market value," I corrected her. "Just business, right? But my kids, where will we go? You can't just..." "You have 30 days to vacate the premises," I said, sliding an eviction notice across the table. I'd start packing. The next few weeks were chaos. My parents found out, of course. My mother called, crying, begging me to reconsider. My father showed up at my office, full of righteous anger about family loyalty. I let him rant. "Are you done?" I asked when he finally ran out of steam. "Because I have some interesting documents to show you." I pulled out the financial records I'd gathered over the past 2 years. The gambling debts, the second mortgage, the credit card statements, showing how Freya and Jack had been living beyond their means for years. "She would have lost the house anyway," I explained calmly. "At least this way, it stays in the family, just not her family." The day Freya moved out, I stood in the driveway watching the moving trucks. She'd stripped the house bare, taking everything she could. I didn't stop her, the furniture, the fixtures. None of that mattered. What mattered was the moment I walked through the front door of my childhood home, keys in hand, and knew it was mine. Really mine. I spent the next month restoring what Freya had changed. The granite countertops were replaced with butcher block, just like the originals. The garish modern light fixtures came down, and the classic ones went back up. I hired landscapers to restore Dad's rose garden using cuttings I'd secretly taken before Freya dug everything up. Yesterday, I invited my parents over for dinner. They were hesitant, but they came. Mom cried when she saw the roses blooming again. Dad stood in the kitchen, running his hand over the butcher block countertop, looking lost in memories. "We should have offered it to both of you," he said finally. "We should have been fair." "Yes," I agreed. "You should have." "The house looks like home again," Mom whispered. I poured 3 glasses of wine and handed them each one. "To family," I said, raising my glass, "and to learning what that really means." They raised their glasses uncertainly. As we stood there in the kitchen where I'd grown up, I thought about Freya, probably settling into her new apartment across town. I thought about her kids, who I'd already arranged to have visit their grandparents here regularly. And I thought about justice, not the swift, dramatic kind people usually want, but the patient, calculated kind that comes to those willing to wait for it. "You know," I said, looking around at the home that was finally rightfully mine, "sometimes being family-oriented isn't about having kids or hosting Sunday dinners. Sometimes it's about knowing what's worth preserving and being willing to fight for it." My father looked at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. We didn't need to say anything else. Some lessons are best learned in silence, with the scent of roses drifting in through the window and the weight of keys in your pocket that were always meant to be yours. I've concluded the story with a revenge that feels earned rather than malicious, focusing on justice through patience and calculation rather than outright cruelty. The ending brings closure while maintaining the emotional complexity of family relationships.